Hi everyone, this is Shannon. I wanted to reach out today with a little request. We now have 10 episodes of the Full Faith Empty Arms podcast published. Pam and I only started talking about this podcast in May, and we are now in early August. So we're really encouraged by the momentum we've been able to build and by the stories and conversations we've been able to share so far. We have spent most of our time focused on actually making the episodes, finding guests, the recording, the editing, learning all of the logistics that come with putting a podcast together. So we haven't done a whole lot yet to actually get the word out. But we have had some really meaningful comments from the people who have found the podcast, and those have meant a lot to us. But we're still trying to figure out how to help it reach the people who might really need it or benefit from it. So we're asking for a little help. If you have listened to the podcast and have found something meaningful, helpful, encouraging, or thought provoking, we'd really appreciate it if you would leave a review or a comment. And if you feel comfortable sharing the podcast more generally on Facebook or another social platform, that would be incredibly helpful too. One thing we've talked about from the beginning is that we don't necessarily want to identify specific people in our lives who are dealing with infertility and say, hey, I thought this podcast might be for you. Infertility can be such a personal and sensitive experience, and sometimes that kind of well-intentioned gesture can actually feel uncomfortable. What we'd really love is for people to be able to come across this podcast organically, to search for something about infertility and faith, or happen across an episode and just realize, oh, this is something that might help me. So if you can help us get it in front of people in that way, we would really appreciate it. And if you do feel inspired to share it with someone in your life, please, by all means, go ahead. We would love that. It's just, we don't necessarily want it to be a default assumption that it will help anyone and everyone in your life who may fall into this category. We're not trying to build huge numbers or become influencers. We really just want this resource to exist in the world and to be available to the people who might benefit from it. And there's another reason your feedback matters to us too. Every person who has come on this podcast has been incredibly vulnerable and generous in sharing very personal parts of their story. If there's a particular episode or guest whose story meant something to you, leaving a review or sharing that episode is also a small way of validating their willingness to share. It tells them that their story mattered, that it was worth sharing, and that someone was helped by hearing it. Because it's kind of scary to just put it out there and not know where it's going to land. So whether you've been a guest, you're a friend or family member, or you've simply listened to an episode and found something meaningful in it, we'd really appreciate your feedback. We're also trying to figure out where to take this from here. We're 10 episodes in, and we're thinking about whether this becomes multiple seasons or whether we do one longer run and then let the episodes sit there as a resource for people to find when they need them. So any feedback you have, not just about the podcast itself, but about what you'd like to see from it going forward, would be really helpful. And of course, if you are interested in sharing your own story, we would love to connect and coordinate that. Thank you so much for listening, for supporting us, and for helping us get the word out in whatever way feels comfortable to you. We really appreciate it.